You're listening to the Football Scholarship Podcast, the playbook for parents and athletes who want to secure the best football scholarships possible. From securing a D1 football scholarship in the SEC at Ole Miss at just £500, £700, myself to helping 83% of the athletes I mentor achieve football scholarship offers and 42% going Division I, I've learned countless lessons that I'll be sharing right here with you. Join me and my co-host Brian Overton, who has 15 years of D1 college football recruiting experience, as we interview top experts, successful athletes, and discuss current recruiting trends. Together, we'll help you navigate the recruiting process so you too can achieve your dream of running out of that tunnel in front of 100,000 screaming fans. This is Richie Contartesi with the Football Scholarship Podcast. Alongside me, our co-host Brian Overton. And just a little bit about this podcast and what it is here for. We work specifically with driven varsity football players, and we turn them and transform them into confident leaders, communicators, and businessmen so they can ultimately secure the best college football scholarships possible. And Brian and I are doing this podcast to share with you behind the scenes of how we work with athletes, the whole entire recruiting process from beginning to end. And essentially, we're going to be talking about top of mind challenges parents are facing, players are facing, and just topics that are relevant to high school football players that are looking to earn a college football scholarship and play college football. So thank you for listening to the show. We got a great topic today, and we're going to be talking about should high school football players receive name, image, and likeness? Should they get paid to play high school football, essentially? But really, it's name, image, and likeness. So, Brian, why don't we just start with let's start with you on what is name, image, and likeness so everyone listening understands, because college players are already getting paid. High school, this is now a new thing. High school players are getting paid in most states. Brian, if you want to just share with our listeners what it is, and then we'll break down if it's good, not good, the whole nine yards.
Yeah, sure. So for everybody that doesn't know, when name, image, and likeness came about in college football, when it got passed, it was intended for exactly what it says. They were trying to get the players a piece of the pie, essentially, where, schools were marketing them or using them for marketing purposes to make millions and millions of dollars, especially off the really good players, whether through promo material or commercials or whatever they did to advertise for the university in general, or through just the football program or whatever the case may be. So they had been fighting for it for a long time. They finally got it passed. And in a nutshell, again, it was designed to be exactly what it says. So the athletes were supposed to benefit monetarily from any kind of name, image, and their likeness that was being used by the university for promotion or advertising or whatever the case may be, and off of what they sold in the bookstore. So everybody in America is going to a college football game, going in the bookstore or a store nearby the stadium, wanting to get some gear. You've got a 12-year-old son whose favorite player is the starting quarterback, and he wants his jersey. So you go in the store, it's got all the paraphernalia in there, and they've got his jersey in there with his number on it. And before, name, image, and likeness, you could not put a name on it, obviously, but now you can. But now when you go in there and buy that player's jersey, that player will get a piece of that sale. And same thing with commercials. If you want that big-time player to promote your program or promote your university, then there are now, agents involved with players that negotiate a price for them to do that. You no longer are gone are the days where you can just call him up and say, hey, Richie, you mind shooting this commercial for us? One of our big donors has got a company, he wants you to put you on TV, and you just say, hey, yeah, thanks. He does a lot for the program, and the player doesn't get anything out of it. Those days are over. So that's what it was initially intended to be. It has turned out to be much bigger than that, and that's a topic for a whole nother day. But that was the intention of it when it got passed in college football, and then it trickled down then into the same for high school football in some states where they are now allowing the high school player to get paid off of their name, image, and likeness in a very similar way.
Okay. What do you think? Should they get paid? Should high school football players get paid? And then at the end of this conversation, we're going to talk about how this affects college football recruiting and getting scholarships.
Yeah. I am on the side of no. I do not. I don't think it should have trickled down into high school. I know you're on the other side of this, and you're going to give a good argument for. But here are a couple of reasons why, and obviously we can talk about them individually, or I can just kind of lay my case out there, and we can go back and forth. But the reason I say no, and I have a little bit of insight. I have a little more insight because I've been on the other side of it in college football. So I've seen some of those problems, even in the college game. And so when it trickled down to high school football, in the back of my mind, I said, this is going to be an absolute mess. So on the top of my list is, even though it's across the board in college football, we know every player can get it, right? It's available to every player. In high school, that is not the case. It's a state-by-state law. Like every state sets their own rules as to how they handle it, whether they even have it, allow it. And if they do, they determine how the kid gets it or whatever the case may be. So there is no common ground with NIL in high school football recruiting. Okay, there is no common ground. It's the Wild West. It depends on what state you live in, which has then caused massive relocations, which was already going on to a certain degree to play at the power programs. And now it's just a full blown mess because if you're in a state that doesn't have a ton of good players and you are a good player in that state, they're picking up, they're moving to another state, whether it be nearby or far away, it doesn't matter, to receive NIL. And that is killing some of the smaller programs who may have a national player or even like a really good player of that caliber once every 3 or 4 years, maybe. You know what I mean? And it gives them the chance to win a lot of games because we all know if you have 2 or 3 guys like that in high school, you can win a lot of games if you have two or three really, really good players. So that's the other thing that's really ramped up is the transfer situation. And I can give you a direct example. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. The football here is really, really good. There's a bunch of national players in Charlotte. So it's a hotbed of football recruiting. And just this past week, my best friend who lives right up the road from me, his son goes to a big time school here in the Charlotte area. They won the state championship last year. They'll sign probably 8 to 10 Division I players this year after this season. Just this past week, one of the top players in the absolute country. He's a top 10 player in the country. Plays at small little Reedsville High School here in North Carolina, right? He led them to the state championship in football and basketball. 6'6", 260-pound tight end, just an unbelievable player. Can go to school anywhere in America he wants. Just a phenomenal athlete. Well, I get a text from my best friend. This kid is now transferring to his son's school at Weddington, who is a powerhouse in Charlotte. I mean, not to Weddington, Providence Day. I'm sorry. That is a powerhouse in Charlotte. Well, why is he transferring? It's all over the news. He's the man down in Reedsville. He's a top 5 player in the country. He's being offered in both sports, just about at every school he's going to. He's transferring because of NIL. The public schools in North Carolina cannot get it. The private school players can. So Reedsville just probably lost the best player that's come through there in 2 decades because they cannot pay him NIL money. And even if they could, they probably cannot pay him whatever the package is that Providence Day gave him here in Charlotte. So right here in my backyard, it's affected it already. And that shows you the state law stipulations that are just a mess in that the private school kids can get it and the public school kids can't, which I think causes a mess, not just because of that situation, but for a myriad of other reasons. And then, so I've got a laundry list. I'm going to just hit 2 or 3, and then so I'll let you get to your argument here. And the last one in my first set here is, it scares the heck out of me because of what I've seen happen in college football. Even in college football, there is financial literacy that we give those guys, times 10. We really educate them on taxes and things like that when you start making money. My worry is, a kid that does not have, a solid support system around him will jump into some of these deals and just sign whatever the person puts in front of them. Okay. That obviously has tax implications that he may not know about or know about even paying taxes. He might not even know he's got to pay taxes on it. He may be signing something that locks him into that person for multiple years. It may have in the contract that, hey, you got to stay with me all the way through your college career. And he never read the contract, doesn't have a lawyer to give it to, doesn't have anybody to help him read it. And just so the implications of the contracts for high school players that don't have the resources available to help them navigate making money or a situation like that just scares the heck out of me with people taking advantage of the kids at that age.
Yeah, that is a good point. I mean, I think you brought up a couple good points here. With that said, I think there's simple solutions to it, and that will lead to better outcomes for everybody. Number one, Brian, what's the one thing that we teach? Like, I use this word all the time. It starts with a big B. But essentially, we're teaching high school athletes how to be what?
Businessmen.
We're teaching them how to be businessmen. And I feel like that, to me, the skill sets, my light keeps going off here, the skill sets that they can develop right now, like they don't have to wait like they need to be developing these skill sets in high school. How to negotiate contracts, dude. How to be a better marketer. How to build their personal brand. They need to, like, I'm a big fan of this. Like, as a business owner, these kids have to start looking at themselves as business owners. They need to open up LLCs. They need to learn contract negotiation. They need to learn marketing. This is such an opportunity for them to start building their personal brand at a young age and getting compensated for it. Like, I hear you. There's no central system. Some schools are getting screwed, but I think legislation will change. Like, it'll have to adapt. It'll have to change. And just like in anything else, life's not fair. Business isn't fair. Recruiting isn't fair. Like, I talked to a parent today. It's not fair. You know what I mean? But that's life, So does it suck for that school? Do we want that? No. But on the other side of it, I think the skills that these kids can develop and learn with the right support, and quite frankly, like, you can get information anywhere, Brian. Like, you can get information on how to do things anywhere. And we have to help educate these kids and say, you get a contract in front of you, it's a $10,000 contract. It's worth you spending $1,000 to get that contract reviewed to make sure it's in your best interest. That's part of being a business owner, right? Well, these kids are 16, 17. I get it, but the world's different, man. The world is different today than it was 10 years ago, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And this is where we're moving today. There is no hiding it. Over the next 25 years, in the past, kids got for being in movies, right? Like, what's his name? The Home Alone kid, right? Macaulay Culkin,
Yeah.
right? And he was very wealthy. You don't need to be in movies today. There's a lot of kids that are dropping out of, I'm not saying to do this, but like in high school that are making full-time salaries by creating content, by doing certain things. And this is just another avenue that you can get paid and that they should get paid. Do we need to create a centralized system for the United States for everybody? Yes. Is that going to happen sooner than later? No, but I don't think it should stop the kids now. You know what I mean? I think we're moving so fast through it that, like, there's going to be some growing pains, but it is what it is. 2, it forces kids to learn financial literacy, to learn taxes, to learn how to manage money, to hire the right people, to open an LLC. Like, these kids are smart, man. They can learn this. I would much rather my 16, 17-year-old learn how to open an LLC and start running his personal brand than going out and partying and spending their time doing this other stuff. Um, outside of fairness and everything else, the last thing, and I think this is the last big point that I have, is it reduces them needing to have a job. Like my freshman year of college, I waited tables and it sucked. And so I feel like this is an opportunity for them to provide for the community, to get their name out there, to build their brand, and to make money without having to go wait tables at Shenanigans or Flanagan's. Isn't Shenanigans the movie? I think that's the movie Waiting. But but it puts them in control. But at the end of the day, Brian, I always go back to the reason our kids are getting offers and having an opportunity is because we're teaching them how to be businessmen. We're teaching them how to market themselves, how to sell themselves, how to confidently communicate with college coaches. And all this is just other areas for us to be able to educate these kids on financial literacy, on contract negotiation, on taxes, on and everything from financial literacy, on saving your money, on investing. Like it really opens the door to a lot of opportunity for these kids and support for them as well, right? So I'm for it, man. I love it. I think a centralized system will come. I think legislation will eventually come. And you saying the lack of financial literacy is an opportunity to create financial literacy now while they're young, so that when they are 40, 50, 60, they're not screwed.
Yeah. And I don't disagree with some of what you said, like the things that it can and it will teach them. The only problem I have with some of that is, one, and I'll try to work backwards, is, you know, Congress couldn't even get it right in college football. Like they haven't even passed anything in college football to help that make sense. So high school football is way on the back burner as far as getting
Yeah, but dude, but
like
why not? But it's gonna come eventually. It'll eventually figure itself out and even out. So why stop them now?
Well, that's what I was getting ready to say. So that, first of all, that's a long ways down the line. So we won't have an even playing field for a long, long time in high school football.
At least
And
5 years, right?
at least. And then the other piece of that is I agree with what you're saying as far as like information is easy to find and doing this and doing that. And you mentioned like paying $1,000, to get the contract looked at or whatever it's worth it if you sign a $10,000 deal. Now I'm putting my high school coach hat back on that I did for 8 years before I did 15 years in college football. And everybody didn't coach in these places, but I think those guys that have availability, like have enough people around them and the support system around them and people that are actually willing to help them do those things, is like the 1%. Just like we work, we try to get our guys in the 1% to get college football scholarships. I think those high school players are the 1%, only because the best example I can give you is in 2009, I had 3 national players, and I was working in the middle of nowhere, North Carolina high school football. I mean, it is hard to get to out there, and it's one of the poorest parts of the state every year, hands down. And the best player I had on the team had 35 offers. He was a national kid because I hauled him all around the country and did this and did that. Well, I paid the light bill in his house as much as they did. You know what I mean? So if NIL was around, there's no chance me or anybody around him could afford, for him to be able to pay for somebody to look at the contract or put things in place to like even open an LLC. I just know some of those places in middle of nowhere America, even as much as we would want them to get all those things, and I would want them to get all those things that you're mentioning, like financial literacy and opening LLCs and things like that. I think it is still a small percentage of those guys that will have even the actual resources and people willing to help them, coach them like we do our guys. Our guys become.
Well, let me ask you this:
our guys become good at that because we coach them and we're invested in them.
I hear it. I hear you. But I will say this: do they have access to YouTube?
Yeah, absolutely. So
no excuses.
No, I'm not saying that they can't do it at all, learn any of it on their own, but eventually at that age, somebody's going to have to grab them by the arm. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
but in
take them
business,
and take them somewhere
uh,
else, whether it be
yeah,
financially or otherwise.
and our kids gonna get taken advantage of? Of course, dude. Like
Yeah, that's
businesses
going to
get
happen no
taken,
matter what.
like I get taken advantage of.
No doubt.
Businesses get taken advantage of. You know what I
No
mean?
doubt.
Like
No doubt.
it's part of life. Like I think one thing you and I could talk about is how to support those kids more. And that might be continuing to post more good content on YouTube, like to
Absolutely.
help them. You know what
Absolutely.
I'm saying? Like,
Just
but
simply
I
talking
don't want
about
to
it.
take away,
Yeah, just
huh?
simply talking about it now will help, because even if it throws up a red flag for somebody in a small town like that, where they can go find the banker at the you know what I mean, the local bank that's willing to do a little seminar for their kids, you know what I mean, on that stuff, and make themselves available. You know what I mean? That'd be a huge step in the right direction.
100%. And if you're listening to this right now and you like Brian's argument, then that's cool. If you're listening to this right now and you like my argument, here's a couple things you can do. All right. Number one, you got to get up and get out in your community, go to local restaurants, go to your local insurance dealers, walk in that front door and ask them if they're interested in being a sponsor. If they're interested in you, can you do a commercial for them? Can you do a Facebook ad for them? Can you do a social media post for them? These companies, they will pay you, right? Make sure it's legal in your state. Make sure you're able to do it. But guys, watch our stuff. Learn how to manage yourself. Learn how to become a businessman. Get out, go to these. I'm telling you, you go to your local insurance companies, your local restaurants, your local chamber of commerce, and you say, hey, I'm available. I'll post about you on my socials. You don't have a social? You better be posting. You got to be posting 3 to 4 times a week, right? Build your personal brand, guys. Because if you do, you can get paid, right? And on top of that, how does this help you for getting to college football? The more you build your personal brand, and then the more you do outreach to college coaches, which we teach, the more people are going to start looking at you. And the more coaches that look at you, the more opportunities that you're going to have. So don't sit back. Like I talked to a parent today and he's like, yeah, my son is his plan is to get really good game film and see what happens. It's like, listen, is your son in the top ESPN 300, top 247? You know, if not, no one's going to watch his film, right? You got to get his film in front of him. And that's how you can leverage NIL to build your brand, to force you to do it, and to get out there and go ask for what's yours. Then you don't got to pay for college. Then you don't got to pay for travel. It's available to you. Make sure, check your state laws, make sure it's legal. But I don't know if that sits well with you, Brian, but I mean, that's what I would do.
No, I mean, if again, if people are willing to help in that way and can kind of cut off some of the things I'm talking about, then obviously I'm never going to be against, you know, a kid getting paid. You know what I mean,
Yeah.
for his name,
Yeah.
image, and
I know
likeness.
you're not. I
Ever.
know you're not.
Not now. I am against it because of the reasons I all said. Now, if those things
I
get
hear you.
better, then my opinion may change over time. You know, so.
Got it. Well, listen, Brian, and for all of you that don't know, Brian has 15 years of Division I recruiting experience. He's our head coach here at Next Play. Amazing human being and someone who truly cares about our players and our athletes, and someone that knows college football, the NIL portal, everything, the ins and outs, the recruiting process. So he's a wealth of knowledge. We're going to be continuing to rock these podcasts. And choose a topic every week that you can use to benefit you and your journey on earning a college football scholarship and becoming a businessman, a confident leader that can confidently communicate with coaches, do outreach, market yourself, sell yourself, and give yourself the best opportunity to succeed. So we're super excited about this podcast. We're super excited to have you as a listener. Brian, any last words before we rock and roll?
No, all I really say is, you know, guys, like there's a lot of states out there that obviously you can take advantage of this. And again, obviously me and Richie were given the pros and cons, and, you know, I gave some reasons why, you know, you got to be really, really careful. And Richie made some great points as to, you know, how it can be very, very beneficial on a lot of levels. So I would say, I would reiterate what he said, check your state laws, really get a good understanding of what they are, before you dive into something. And, just find somebody at your school that you really trust, whether it's a coach or a guidance counselor or somebody like that. If you have an opportunity to take advantage of NIL, just to make sure you do it right and you don't get yourself in a bad situation. That's what I would leave you with. And just ask a lot of questions, but if you can take advantage of it, by all means do it. I just don't want you to put yourself in a bad spot.
Awesome. Good stuff, Brian. Really appreciate it, man. If you guys enjoyed this podcast and you're on YouTube, make sure to hit the bell notification and subscribe if you want to see more videos just like this. If you're listening on Apple or any other type of podcast, if you could just leave a review on your opinion and your thoughts on this episode, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Scholarship Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. And for more free resources, or if you're interested in working with us, visit gonextplay.com. Until next time.